Good morning. Welcome to another Faith Life session. I am Coach D, your Faith Life coach. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to impart unto you a level of spiritual wisdom, revelation, understanding, and the practicalities of living your faith life. Jesus said it like this. He said, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. That was an indication of the life and how life was supposed to be lived. He also said, he said, I am come that you may have life and have life more abundantly. That life that he wants you to have more abundantly is confined within the framework of your faith life. Inside of that life, I brought my whiteboard today. My blackboard, I should say, because I want to be able to give you a visual of what I'm saying. So inside of this life, this is called your faith life. We'll call this your faith life, right? Inside of this bubble, so to speak, of your faith life is the life more abundantly that Jesus was talking about. If you don't, prior to salvation, we're outside of this life. We're outside of this life. That's you and I. We're outside of this life. Once we are, we'll call it get saved, or once we are now children of the Most High God, we now have to get inside of this life. Everything you desire is inside of this life. Prosperity, wealth, health, riches, significance, empowerment, like everything is inside of this life. The problem is you got to get on the inside of it. Most of us are not on the inside of that life. Therefore, we get stuck on the outside, and we limit, and we have a lack. We have a life that's filled with lack, that's filled with frustration, that's filled with disappointment. But if you want to experience the life that Jesus came for us to experience, you have to be coached into that life. You have to be instructed into that life. And that's why we are here. We're here to give you an alternative to a lot of the things that are, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but are less relevant to you fulfilling the obligation that God has called us to fulfill as sons. Hence, we are talking about the sound and the substance of sonship. And that's what it's all about. Ever since from day one, from the very beginning, everything God did, he always did with his sons in mind, with the spirit of sonship in mind. He wanted his sons to walk and have a level of life that matched him being their father. And until we enter into the sonship that God has called us to, we'll never be able to enter into the faith life that God has called us to, and we'll never be able to experience the abundant life God has called us to. Right? Abundant joy, abundant peace, abundant rest, abundant faith, abundant mercy, abundant grace, abundant long suffering, like an abundance of everything, right? And so that's what it's all about. And we are here to coach you into this life that we've been experiencing for the last 30 years, that we want you to be able to experience in every compartment of your life. But we ask you to do a couple of things for us. First, we ask you to be present, right? We ask you to be prayerful, and we ask you to help us to promote this message through your giving. And so as the Spirit of God leads you, do so. I know this, that I myself, coming out of the football background and the professional ranks, like we need coaches up there as professional athletes. So if we needed coaches and we're at the apex of our life, you need a coach in every sector of your life. So we welcome the opportunity to be able to serve you into this life God has called us to. Now, because I'm running out of time, let's get it. We left off talking about the spirit of adoption. We talked about, we're going from Romans chapter 8, verse 14 through 17. We talked about the importance of Romans chapter 8. And this was like the crescendo of Paul's message in Romans chapter 8. And he gets to it and he says, for as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. We elaborated on that. For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear. We told you about how every element or every aspect of bondage can be related to some fear or phobia that you operate from. Whether it was something that happened in your childhood or something that happened yesterday, there's a phobia that is developed in the soul when it comes to something that may have happened that was negative to you. Well, you have to break that. You have to break that. The Son of God, the child of God, the children of God have not received that spirit of bondage again to fear. Now, what we've received is the antithesis of that. So we have received the spirit of liberty of love, because love is the antidote to fear, and we broke that down how love is the antidote to fear. Not faith, what some folks do. Fear is the opposite of faith. No, it's not. No, it's not. Fear is the antidote faith is the antidote for fear. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's love, right? The Bible says, perfected love casteth out all fear. Mature love casteth out fear. A mature lover don't fear. They understand how to manage fears, how to deal with fears when they try to come on you, right? We broke that down for you. So now, here's what I want to get to. But ye have not received the spirit of but ye have received, the spirit of adoption. And I want to just take some time today and talk about this whole idea of the spirit of adoption, because it is I want to say diametrically opposed to what most folks perceive adoption to be, especially in the Westernized culture. In our culture, we perceive adoption to be when we go to an orphanage or we go to a child care center where there's children that's been given to them to be taken care of because their parents for some reason didn't want them, or they were abandoned, or whatever the case is, and that's in those situations. And then me and my spouse, we go through a process of being qualified so that we can so they can determine whether or not we're going to be fit to be able to raise raise children. And then we go through this whole process and we meet with these people, children. Now, these are children that's been birthed and been reared by other people. Some given up at birth, some given up as 2 years old, 3 years old, different ages, and then they go into the care of this orphanage, and then they take care of them until somebody comes and adopts them. Then the family go through a process. They spend time with the child. They say they think this is a good fit, and they ended up adopting the child. There's no biological connection. There's no cultural connection. There's no connection physically, physiologically, mentally. There's no connection at all with the child. That is the exact opposite of what this particular. It is a legal process. Let me add that point. It is a legal. The adoption is a legal process. There's a transfer of custodial custody to the parents, to the new parents. In some cases, they take on the name of the family. In some cases, there's an inheritance. But this idea that Paul is introducing to us, the spirit of adoption, is again, it's almost the complete opposite, right? And it's very important because the cry of Abba Father is directly linked to this particular revelation. And so what I want to talk to you and give you a breakdown of this particular word in this particular series, this lesson. And this lesson is designed to give you a clear picture of who you are and your identity now that we've been baptized into Christ Jesus and we've been declared to be the sons of God, right? This is a compound word in the Greek, huios themi, And the first word, huios, means son. That's a mature son. And this word huios is the word, there's two words in the Greek for son. One is teknon, the other is huios. Huios is the word that speaks to a son who's mature, one who is entered into a certain status as a son where he's able to manage the affairs of the family, one who is ready to manage and take on his inheritance. It speaks to one who has gone through the process of training, and they now have the mind of their father. They now have the heart of their father. They now have the mouth of their father. They understand the father's desires. Like this speaks to a level of maturity to where the father can completely entrust his son into managing the affairs of the family, extending the family name, right? They were given this signet ring. Remember when the prodigal son came back, they said, put a ring on his finger. Well, that ring was the family signet ring. And wherever you went as a son, all you had to do was show this ring, and that was how you transact the business. They know that ring, you would seal whatever agreement you had with that signet ring, and they know this deal, not only the son, but the family was bound to transact that business deal with this particular entity, right? So this word huios is a word that speaks to a level of maturity that a father can now entrust. Why? Because the son thinks like the father. The son desires what the father desires. The son has went through a level of development because he's watched father modeled before him how to function and how to live as a man of faith, right? So that word huios. The second aspect of that word, tethema, means to place, to appoint, or to set positionally, right? I hope you're catching where I'm going. So what the idea of Paul saying, you've now been given, you've now received the spirit of adoption. The spirit of adoption. So the spirit of adoption in this particular case, as we see, is in reference to a mature son who father now places in a position of authority, in a position of power, in a position of status. So now this son has been given a position within society, within the community, within the family eco structure, to where now you have a level of ability to do a certain particular thing. And this was a big deal in Paul's day in the Greek culture, right? This was a placement of a son and a declaration of a father over his son that pointed out he has a legal status, he has a legal inheritance, he has a level of authority, he's been given a level of responsibility. There's been a legal transfer of power to this appointment, to the son. Like the father was saying, this was done publicly, and there was people invited to the ceremony. This was a public event. And the father would decree publicly that my son, I'm appointing, I'm adopting, I'm placing, I'm setting this son in a position of authority within this community to transact business in my name. Oh, you got to get it. You got to get what we're saying. This was a legal transfer of power. This is what's happening for you and I in God's kingdom. It's a royal appointment. It's a royal appointment of sons in positions of authority. See, that's what the fivefold ministry is about. You can't just take that position on your own like most of us do. You got to be royally appointed. You got to have a legal transference of power. This is covenant. This is placement, legal placement of a son in the business structure of the family. In the Greek, they adopted their own children. The idea of adoption was to place in a particular position of authority. This was a public recognition of my son is now just as powerful as me. He has a right to transact business in the family's name. Associated with this appointment is privileges and rights and powers. Inheritance, authority, liberties. See, this is exactly what happened. Go to Matthew chapter 17, verse 14, 4 through 6. Now, this is going to give some significance and clarity to this particular situation. In Matthew's gospel. Well, you know what? Let's look at. Remember when Jesus went to John the Baptist to be baptized, and this was a public spectacle. This was like the whole town was out there, and when Jesus came up out the water, wait, was it that time? I might be mixing something up. I want to be sure about it. I want to be sure about that. When there was a declaration, God says, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. That was this happening. That was adoption taking place. That was God placing Jesus publicly and declaring Jesus publicly that he was this son who's been appointed to be an heir, has been appointed to be, had been transferred, a legal transformation took place in that particular thing, in that instance. That just wasn't a miraculous thing God wanted everybody. No, that was family order. That was family business. That was kingdom order taking place. God was declaring publicly before man. Man, that thing bothers me. God was declaring publicly before man, this is my beloved son. in whom I'm well pleased. Let me find it. Right, Matthew chapter 3, verse 13, it says, Then cometh Jesus to Galilee, to Jordan, unto John to be baptized. But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of thee, and comest thou unto me? And Jesus answered and said unto him, Suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. Then John suffered him. And Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, the Spirit of adoption, and lighting upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven, saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. That was God decree. That word "well pleased" there is that's not a word that only speaks to God being happy about His Son. No, that's a word that says, "Who I'm excited. I'm well pleased to be in this covenant relationship with Him." It's the same word we find over in Hebrews chapter 11 that says, "Without faith it is impossible to please God." That word is to be in a covenant agreement with God without faith. He said, "I'm in covenant with Him. I'm well pleased. I'm in covenant. My covenant with Him. I'm well pleased with my covenant relationship with my Son." Because of so, I'm publicly declaring He's the authority. He's the voice. He's the man. He's the one. That's why in John, later on in Matthew in 17, when on the Mount of Transfiguration, and verse 4 says, man, let me go look at it. Mount of Transfiguration, chapter verse 17. Verse 1 says, and 6 days after Jesus taking Peter and James and John, his brother, and bringing them up into the high mountain apart, and he was transfigured, right, before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as snow, was white as light. And behold, there appeared unto him Moses and Elias talking to him, right? Then answered Peter and said unto him, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make thee 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. Now you got to understand when he's talking about making 3 tabernacles, he's talking about you made a tabernacle for worship. In their mind, worship is about instruction. It's about hearing. It's about, I want to talk to you. While Peter yet spake. In other words, shut up, be quiet, stop. God cut him off. A bright cloud overshadowed him. And behold, a voice out of the cloud said, This is my beloved Son. Now remember, now you got to be mindful. Mindful now. A cloud, a bright cloud, so they can't see. They can't see. You can't see anything. A bright cloud overshadowed them. This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Watch this. Hear ye him. That is the ultimate sign of authority. This is the voice you listen to. This is the voice you long after. This is the voice you esteem. I get Moses, I get Elias, but this is him. And while the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were so afraid. Now watch what happened. And Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise, be not afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. Remember, they had saw Moses and Elias talking with him. But after the declaration of this is my beloved Son, remember they couldn't see when he said this is my beloved Son. He could have been talking about Moses. He could have been talking about Elias. But when they opened their eyes, they only saw one man, Jesus. God in that moment was operating in the spirit of adoption, where He appointed Jesus heir of all things, gave Him the authority that only God could give Him. This is the same thing that has happened to you and I. The same thing has happened to you and I. We have not been given the spirit of bondage again to fear, but we have been given the spirit of adoption whereby, right? So we've been given the spirit of adoption, the spirit of formally being set and given a level of authority and a level of power within the family ecostructure and society. Powerful. And you call yourself a son? And you call yourself a son? And you call yourself a son? And you don't think like this? You call yourself a son? And you don't move like this? You call yourself a son? No. You got to see yourself as one who's been appointed, one who's been anointed, one who's been given authority, one who's given the power to build the business, to build a family, to build a community, to build a structure, to build whatever it is God has called you to build. Because when you get appointed as sons, when you've been given the spirit of adoption, when you've been declared to be a son of God, you get all of that. You get all of that. All of that comes with it. All of that comes with it. Ah, man, I'm awesome. All of that comes with it, right? It's important that we understand that this spirit of adoption is the key to the next phase of the life God has called us to live. And I'm going to shut it down right there because it's important that you recognize and you see that this is a legal transference of authority and power to a son. And God says, He's given us the spirit of adoption, this legal authority. Now we have a right to cry. Now we have the authority to cry. And on Wednesday, we're going to talk about what that cry is all about. And I'm telling you, it's transformational. And this is the reason why most believers are still suffering silently in the chambers of depression and disappointment and poverty, because they don't live from this cry. And this cry is the key to bring you out of a culture of disappointment and death and into a culture of life and life more abundantly. Man, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you. I'm glad God gave me the right to release this word to you so that your life can be transformed and you can come into the life that God, Jesus, gave his life for you to have. But until Wednesday, know this, that you are beloved, you are blessed, you are destined to prosper, and you are more than a conqueror in Christ Jesus. God bless y'all. We love y'all. We'll see you on Wednesday night.